I want to talk about the problems I have with Berserk, the manga. I'm not going to talk about the anime because it's a flop. I have a few problems with Berserk that I feel are not talked about enough or at all on social media. You know how there's like anime talk or anime talk or whatever, and everyone's like always dick riding Berserk because it's beautiful and super deep. Even though it's like really graphic and horrifying, people are like, no, you have to watch it because it'll change you. I'm not saying anything about you if you really enjoy Berserk. Also, I was gonna say the author of Berserk, Kentaro Miura, he died in May of 2021. So I think it's also like a sensitive subject. I'm not trying to disrespect the author after his death or anything like that. I'm cutting onions right now because I'm gonna make pasta. My instinct is that certain aspects of Berserk are fetishistic and like pedophilic because there is so much unnecessary depictions of sexual violence. And I'm not trying to say that books that are really gory, graphic, or that depict sexual abuse should not be published because that would be censorship, and I don't agree with censorship. Lady Farnese. That's how they say it in the anime, but I think it's spelled Farnese in the manga. I liked her character development a lot, apart from the beginning. The Grape of Casca, is that how you say it? I don't know. In Japanese, it's like Casca or something. I don't really see the purpose. And maybe, like, I'm sure people do see the purpose and then they'll just be like, you just don't get it. Like, it was clearly meant for whatever deep meaning, but I feel like he could have blurred it. Also, I don't think he should have drawn it all out at all, because what point are you trying to illustrate? Like, Griffith stole Guts' girl, Griffith's greed. It didn't feel like a respectful portrayal of a woman being okay, it is fantasy, but the fact that it's set in medieval Europe and there are a lot of similarities between real medieval Europe and Berserk. Who are you as a man to draw a of a woman and have it be all about the man? God, his suffering, his arm was bitten off. I feel like if you think that he was giving Casca space for her suffering in that moment, that's your interpretation and not necessarily how he intended for it to be. It seems to just be like the most pivotal, like the climax, maybe even in the whole book, of the turning point of Griffith and Guts' relationship, and she's just a tool to enable that to happen. And like the Five God Hand and all the monsters. You're sensationalizing something that should not be ever sensationalized. If you're a Japanese man in Japan, the level of discrimination that you have faced is not comparable to the discrimination that women face all around the world. I don't think it's his place to be portraying the of a woman. And I know that there's creative liberty that I shouldn't try to impede, but I just feel like we can acknowledge the fact that Berserk is an amazing manga of cultural importance while also acknowledging that there are some very problematic parts of what the author did that we shouldn't ignore just because everyone thinks it's so amazing. Also, it's not just about women. So there's a scene with Shieko, the witch, and there's a scene with Guts where he's wounded after one of his battles, but she like just came out the shower. I'm not there. She just came out the bath and she's like in a towel. She's a kid. That was really unnecessary and wrong that he drew a literal minor's naked body with an older man seeing it. And then she blushes, like she seems to have a crush on him too, which is just like, what? Like, can we please stop? And then she erases his memory. So the whole thing is completely irrelevant to the plot. Like, he just thought it was funny. Like, he just wanted to see this depicted. The fact that Casca is put in so many compromising situations, it's weird. It's like, let me first infantilize a victim. I get why people don't mind that because obviously rape is extremely traumatic. It's not unrealistic to think that an illness like the one that Casca has, apparently her brain has withdrawn. But the way that she's portrayed, putting jewels in her mouth, like sucking on things It's infantilizing and it's weird. And even before the eclipse, when for the Band of the Hawk she was a general, we had this whole episode where she's on her period and then, which is, you know, it's fine. Then she faints and falls off a cliff and Guts has to go, into a river, save her. Yeah, there's a whole lot of men saving women in this story, which is also a problem that I have because it's sexist. Then he takes off her clothes because she got wet from the river and he wants her to warm up. And it's like, yes, science, no wet clothes get warm, okay, but like this didn't need to be portrayed. We didn't need to unconsensually take off a woman's clothes, you know what I mean? The author seems to have excuse after excuse to take off women's clothes without their consent or to do sexual things to them without their consent. This is just gross. Like, you're not advocating for SA victims by portraying this again and again in a very patriarchal way. And there's when Guts loses her, the fact that he's so upset about straight after the eclipse, after she withdraws, he's so upset that she doesn't want him to touch her because she's so traumatized that he leaves. Like, what? Also, there's a forced kiss when she's unable to consent because she's mentally withdrawn. I mean, there are a lot of things that happen while she's unable to consent, like her running around naked. I also wanted to talk about the way that the women are drawn compared to men, because there are quite a few scenes where men and women are naked, but the men aren't drawn fully naked, whereas the women are. Which I feel like is also sexist and as well proves or maybe is revealing of how women are sexualized and men aren't, because the author was attracted to women and not men, I guess. The men, he would just skip out the penis, which is like fine, but then if you're gonna skip out the penis, then also skip out the important side characters that are women that are portrayed as naked all the fucking time, and there aren't very many male characters that are portrayed naked at all. It also seems like he was just drawing certain things for his own. There's also the Five God Hand. There aren't any naked male parts, male presenting God Hand, but there is that one lady. Moving on to more pedophilia, there's Princess Charlotte, who, when she was 16, her father sexually assaults her. I also think he shouldn't have drawn this because there was just no need. There could have been a note saying without actually drawing it all out. Why would you want to draw a child being sexually assaulted by a pedophile who's her own father? Also, she was 17 when Griffith her, which is not unrealistic to think. What is now considered underage, like statutory happened in medieval times. But again, I don't know, that we need to draw it all out. Also, not only statutory and any circumstance. She says no several times. Acting like it doesn't matter. Punish the victim, making us suffer. Nobody even believes her. I said before that I would talk about how this is not only about women. So Donovan is paid by Guts' father figure to Guts when he's 9. So there's another child scene. I don't think he should have drawn this either. I also want to talk about Guts and Casca's love scene because he chokes her because he's having flashbacks of when he was as a child. She says no, but the way that he does it is that she doesn't articulate the O part. She just says n. She says wait a little gentler. He's not at all. She says no again. She tries to get away from him. I think he makes her bleed and then he chokes her.
Now she's pregnant, having his baby, raped by her very own father. Ah, scared till I break.
So yeah, not a very consensual love scene. I feel like you could call that because consent is not a one-time thing and then he's okay to continue no matter what she says. When she said no and wait, he should have stopped and be gentler, and then he should have been you know what I mean? I feel like maybe people will disagree with me because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, they're so cute together. I also think that the torture or like mutilation that the victims of the priest and his Mosgoth's disciples in his torture chamber, I felt like it could have been illustrated that this was happening in a more subtle way. We did, so like if I was the FBI and I took his computer and I looked at his search history. Also because he must have searched up images of this kind of thing to be able to draw it. Like I understand that you need that to be shown or said that it's happening so that as a reader we understand how dark this story is supposed to be. I still don't feel like drawing the whole torture chamber with everyone in these torture devices was necessary. Well, it's not about being necessary or unnecessary. Like I just think by drawing it in this way that's like really beautiful and has all these details.
There are times where it feels like gratuitous.
And I think it's kind of a shallow, immature and insensitive. The way the scenes involving pain are portrayed is unempathetic and seems to be like on surface level and lack basic understanding of the value of people's pain. Like yes, we care when it's guts, but a bunch of random people in the torture chamber is not expanded on, or there's no like depth to that particular scene. Also, I was talking about child before and I wanted to talk about Casca. She's 12, so she was stood by a nobleman and she's shown like half naked.
Now, I'm getting the word nonce.
I feel like I've already talked about why this is unnecessary and wrong. I'll also talk about Lady Farnese. So she has pyrophilia. That's what it says on her wiki fandom page, but I feel like she's a sadist and a masochist. That's like her main thing. I guess all I have to say about her is that she's one of the many side female characters depicted naked for no reason. The way that Lady Farnese was initially portrayed, it felt disrespectful of women. It's a common theme in our real life history for women to be portrayed as being weak to their desires. When there were witch hunts, which there are in Berserk too, the first man who published a book about witches, the Malleus Maleficarum by Heinrich Kramer, he wrote in his book, all witchcraft comes from carnal lust, which is in women insatiable. What else is a woman but a necessary evil? But I feel like, yes, it was a common belief that women were witches and evil and had insatiable lust, but that didn't actually happen. That was just a misogynistic lie. So I felt like it was weird or misogynistic for Mura to validate the evil lewd stereotype by making Farnese this sadist who gets off to watching people burn alive.